Hello, hello, and welcome to the show. I'm Nadia Giordana, and you are watching Where Women Talk. I'm here with seasoned author Judy McConnell. She has a new book out, and let's go talk to Judy, find out about that book and what else she's been up to recently. Hello, Judy, and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm glad you were available. I have been wanting to talk to you for some months now since I first heard your book, The Night Owl Sings. Did I get that title correct?
Absolutely.
The Night Owl Sings came out. And why don't you show your two? You have a hardcover and a paper book. Why don't you show the audience your covers?
Okay, this is The Night Owl Sings uh, and Other Stories of Old Age. And this is the paperback copy. And it also comes out in a hardcover copy. It's the same book, but it's more fancy. It's a bigger, better book.
And I see an award sticker on there. When did that happen?
Oh, several months ago, it's a finalist American Fiction Award.
Fantastic. Yes. And I heard you talking, you said stories of about old age. Tell us a little bit what your book is about. Maybe is it all fiction? Is it based on real life like a lot of fiction? Give us a little bit of a rundown on the book.
Okay, this is it's all stories about people who are over 60. I didn't really start out to talk about um, old age, but that's where I'm at. And that's what's going on with me, and that's just what came out. And I found that there's not a lot out there written about old age, and so I've been pleased with the reception it's gotten. It's short stories, and it just covers a whole wide variety of topics. There's a story in there about an older woman who's has two kids, and they're busy with their own lives, and they really uh, don't have much time for her. And she reminisces about her old days um, when her husband was alive and they were up at the cabin in the lake. And she decides she's going to go up to the lake, which is the cabin has been falling apart. She's going to go up there and renovate it and make it beautiful. And the kids will come up and her grandkids and everybody will be happy again. And that's not what happens at all. She gets up to the lake. She has to deal with the construction workers. She runs across an old boyfriend. She finds that she develops a relationship with nature she didn't realize she had, and she's basically transformed, and her whole life takes a different direction. That's one story. There's another story about a romance of two people in their 70s that goes kind of strange and haywire. And there's another story about a couple in their 60s, 70s, and they have decided not to have children because the wife is career-minded and she doesn't want children. The husband, however, would like a whole house full of children. So um, there's this discrepancy. And one day, um, there's a knock on the door, and a woman stands there. So happens that the wife of the story has a secret. When she was 16, she gave birth. And of course, she wasn't able to keep the child, and they gave it up for adoption under the strict stipulation that it would be never referred to again. Nobody would ever find out, and it was erased. And she hadn't mentioned it to her husband because she thought didn't exist.
That's the way it
And so,
used to be. Yeah.
yeah. And so, yeah, that starts a whole chain of events that basically changes everything. So that's another story. So those are just some examples
That's
of
some good
stories.
examples. Readers like interesting twists and turns and surprises and things like that in the story. So when you wrote a couple of books before this, you want to tell us just a quick little bit about your earlier writing history?
The first book I wrote was a memoir, and it was written after I retired. I'd written a lot while I was young, but I really started writing seriously. I had kids. I was a housewife. I didn't get much writing done, but when I retired, I took it up again, seriously, full time. And I wrote the story of growing up in Minneapolis. I grew up in Golden Valley and Kenwood. So it's apropos to Minnesota very much. And so it was a story of life at that time. And I can tell you, life back then was very different than it is now. Imagine a house with uh, a a coal bin that's on the side of the house so that you shovel the coal in and it goes down to the basement and you put it in the furnace.
Yes.
Imagine your back stoop it had a little container and the milk was left in the back stoop and it was in glass bottle with cream on the top. Um, what else? There was no television. That makes a huge difference. If you can imagine, my father, when he grew up, there were no airplanes. And it's hard to imagine a world without airplanes, but my own father. And I did a lot of reading because there was no television. So I read and read and read, which is, to me, goes hand in hand with writing. Um, so that's what my first book was about, that growing up. The second book was a further memoir about after I graduated from college. I went to the University of Southern California, and at that time I was really heavily into writing. I was going to be this great artiste, and I palled around with artists and writers. And um, I after leaving college, I went to New York, where I lived for several years. I went over to France, lived for a year, bummed around Europe. So the second memoir is about that. It's about my 20s, basically.
You
And
you bring up an important point that not all people know or understand, not even all writers, because you mentioned two memoirs, and a memoir is technically not your life story from beginning to yesterday. It's that would be an autobiography, whereas a memoir or memoirs are usually a slice of that life that you're remembering and telling a story about. Is that how you view it all?
exactly, exactly. And that was then I decided that was enough about me. My next book was going to be fiction. I was going to write a novel, which is a whole different ballgame, I found. Um, I sat down and I stared at the screen on my computer. It's like, okay, now what do I do? Because my memoirs, you've got letters, you've got photographs, and your memory clicks in,
Yeah.
and things come back, they come pouring back. Now didn't have any of that as a crutch. I had to make things up, and that was very challenging, but it was also fun and
Oh,
interesting. And so this is my third book, is my novel. It's called Dream House, and it's the story of a couple who lived out in Deep Haven in Minnesota. And this was during the late 60s and early 70s. And I don't know if you remember, but this is when there was basically a cultural revolution in this country. That was when the Watts riots took place. The Martin Luther King, it was the civil rights movement was just exploding. In Kent State University, 4 American students were killed by other Americans. I mean, that's how drastic it was. We were killing each other. Um, and that's what this book covers. Um, It's based because I did live through this period and it made a big change in my life. So it's based a lot on my own experience, but it's very fictionalized. I mean, there's lots of stuff in there that is much more interesting than my own life, actually. Um, so that's the story about how this revolution, because following the Cultural Revolution, we come across the feminist revolution and Gloria Steinem and Betty Friedan and all those people. And it just changed the couple's relationship. It changed their marriage and their children. And this is what this story is about, basically.
So on and off, basically throughout your life, or at least the last decade or two, you've been writing reasonably regularly, would you say?
Yes, until I published this last book, and it happens after every book. For the last 6 months, I've been busy promoting this book, and that's very time consuming. So, but I'm just starting again back to getting to writing again. Um, so, yeah,
Oh,
I've
I was going to ask you if you have other titles in the works, or have you even gotten as far as a potential title or idea for a book?
I'm not sure if I'm going to write a book or what. I really have come to love short stories.
Me too.
Um,
Me too.
they don't have a good reputation, and I'm not crazy about 2 pages or 3 pages where there's just a, fly in the pan. But uh, my book, my short stories tend to be long. In fact, a couple of them are pretty much novellas. And my trouble was I was so used to writing long books, and it was really hard to cut down. And my editor said, I said, well, I'm writing short stories. And he said, well, this is way too long. So he made me cut and cut and cut. And I protesting, oh, no, you can't cut that. And but they're much, much improved. But my stories are full stories. They have plots, they have array of characters, they have the denouement, they have all kinds of, I mean, suspense. They're full stories, and you can say a lot in a short story.
You
The thing
can.
is, with a short story, it's kind of hard because every word counts in a short story. So it's a little bit like poetry in a way. Uh, you can be much more innovative in a short story. You can get away with more. You can just be creative, and I enjoy short stories a lot.
I do too. I agree. I love writing short stories, much like you. I write poetry, and that has helped me hone my short stories and zero in. And it really is a whole different skill than novel writing.
It absolutely, I was surprised to find. So I'm sticking with short stories. I've written a couple. Actually, what I've gone back, I've written short stories over the years that, you know, nothing to speak, nothing to brag about. But I'm going back over them to see what they're like, and most of them I threw away quickly. The others I'm working on. I might revive them and see if I can make them into something. But I'm working actually on two short stories right now. So I'm getting back into it slowly. As soon as Christmas is over, I will have more time. And yeah, to answer your question, yes, I have a regular schedule. When I am writing, I write every morning from 8 to 12. And sometimes it goes over 12 if I'm just finishing a chapter and I'm right in the thick of it. I can't give up. I mean, I want to finish what's going on in my head. So it could go on into the afternoon.
That was
But
going
I
to be
do
my
make it a,
next question. Yeah, your writing process.
oh, I thought you'd already asked it. Okay.
I probably did in a different way. Yeah, that's absolutely true. But your schedule and how disciplined you are. I am not very disciplined.
I have to be. First of all, I've got the story in my mind and it's percolating, and I can't wait, I can't wait a week or two. I lose it. I need to keep on the roll. And I mean, obviously I take time off between, it's not 7 days a week, but that's my general goal is I try not to schedule anything in the mornings.
Do your
Can't always do it,
family
but
and yeah, do your family and friends get involved or excited about your books? Or like a lot of authors, do they take it more in stride? I find my family goes, "Oh yeah, you wrote another book. Okay, blah, yada yada."
I'm so glad you said that because my family doesn't seem very interested. Um, and I shouldn't, to be fair, they have shown an interest in my memoirs and in all of my books. Basically, what they want to know is what part is true and what part isn't true. And I say, what do you think I'm writing fiction for? You're never going to hear that from me. So, so, but they haven't. Uh, it hasn't been a big deal, let's put it that way. They've been supportive and interested a little bit, mainly wanting to know what what part of it they can relate to, but no, they haven't shown a lot of interest. Friends are different. My friends have been very
Right. Well,
interested.
most of our friends, if yours are like mine, are writers, so they do show a little more interest and they actually do read your books. I secretly think my family's never read. Other my parents did, but I don't think they really even read my books. But another question I had for you, do you have what kind of advice would you give to a writer kind of in our age group? Would you consider yourself a baby boomer? I do in the baby boomer age group, or thereabouts, who might want to be spending their retirement time getting down on paper, either a memoir or fiction. What kind of advice would you give?
Well, I would say so many people now that the computer's here, I've taken up writing and uh, there's actually two kinds of writing. There's the writing for your family where you want to record for history what your life has been like. And that's one thing. And you don't have to be so fussy. And I'd say that for them, um, well, not that I'm that far ahead, but I would say just do it. Just get it down on paper. They're so worried that they're not going to be good. Don't worry about that. Just tell your story and you can fix it up later. If you're really seriously interested in writing serious literature, and that's more than just your story or fiction, um, I would say you just get in a schedule and stick to it, and don't mind if it's hard, and don't mind if you say, I have nothing to say. What am I trying to write for? Or I can't think of anything right now, or this stinks. Just forget all that and just what I do when I get uh, stymied, I make myself sit there and I can't get off the chair until I write something. And pretty soon I get so bored I write something and then it keeps going and then I get back into it. But don't give up. And also join a group, a writing group. The Loft is a fantastic resource. But get in a writing group, get with other writers because that's very stimulating.
Very, very good advice. And Judy, do you have, before we go, do you have a personal website or where would people go to look you up and to find your books?
Sure. My website is www.agreatbook.com. And you'll see the story of my life
I'll
and
put
about my
that up.
books
Yeah,
and
I'll
about
put
my
that
books.
up.
And people can always also you can put up my email because if people want to purchase my book, they can do it directly through me. I can just mail it to them.
Yeah, okay, I'll include your email address when I put this together for you. And thank you
Okay.
so much for being on the show today, Judy. This was fascinating.
I enjoyed it thoroughly. Nice to talk to you, and thank you for having me. Take care.